Hi, everyone. If you're in the room, let me know if you can hear me. Oh, now you can see me. Y'all should be able to hear me and see a little picture. I think you can now. I had turned my, okay, we're doing a little troubleshooting, so hold on. Uh, there we go. Okay. All right, you guys, sorry about that. I had turned things off and then on and then, oh, yay, yay. Okay, we can get started. This is good. All right, we have maybe just about a couple more that might join, but if you are with me today, I'm going to be talking about hormones, sex, and libido, which is kind of one of our favorite things here at Desert Wellness Center. Obviously, we take care of men and women, and so many times we take care of women, and you feel so good that you send your guy to us, which is fantastic, and we love that too. So it ends up being kind of a little group project, which I think is pretty fun. So that's kind of where this webinar came from today. And I've actually taught this presentation in a lot of different forms at live events, which actually is really fun and my preference. And, honestly, in my office every day. So let's go ahead and get started. It's about 5 after, so we can get you some great information and get you on your merry little way. I'm Dr. Kris Wallace, and I'm a naturopathic physician at Desert Wellness Center. We see men and women, all ages, but primarily we're seeing people between the ages of about 40 and 65. And we talk a lot about hormones and your optimal health, everything from managing all your hormones to your thyroid, including your cortisol levels and all the things in between. So today we are going to hone in, though, and focus on hormones, sex, and libido, how they go together, and what are some things that you can do, even if you're not replacing your hormones. So let's get going. I like to set the stage for some definitions to get started. And when I talk about hormones, sex, libido, and all the things, it is more than just hormones. It's more than just sex and libido, on and on and on. So your hormones, obviously, estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, we're going to address those. Sex itself, It's a physical response. We know that. So there's things that happen in regards to our physical response. Libido is more about that drive or that desire. And sometimes these things are not 100% on board. They all have to be working together, I think, to create the passion, which is why I brought the word passion into the whole thing. And obviously relationship. We can correct all the things. We can correct your hormones and get your libido on fire and make sure that physiologically you can have an orgasm and things feel good and it's not, there's no vaginal dryness. But if the relationship is not where it really needs to be, you're probably not going to experience that passion. So that's why, after 40, no matter what, and it could be even mid 30s, you are busy, busy, busy. You don't have time a lot of times. You don't notice that the hormones are out of whack. There's a definite disconnect. And so it's time to focus on those things, but it just doesn't mean that sex is over. It doesn't mean that your relationship and the sexual relationship is over. In fact, we find that when sexuality is going well in a relationship, it's positive. It adds 15 to maybe 20% of positivity to the vitality of a marriage and a relationship. But when it's not going well, when sex is dysfunctional or non-existent, its power is higher. It can take its toll, 50 to 70% more, or affecting marriage and intimacy and relationships. So kind of like life, good things are good, yay, bad things are really bad. And we don't want that. So let's see what we can do about that. First of all, let's just kind of get the hormones straight, right? So everything has to kind of work together. Estrogen, primarily found in women, first starts in puberty, right? Starts the building of all the sexual organs and function. And as we move along, helps the building of the uterine lining, stimulates growth, all of those things. Low estrogen, as we progress through life, does the opposite, unfortunately, causes vaginal dryness and atrophy of the vaginal lining, also causes some dysfunction when it comes to orgasm. Estrogen for women, super important for your bones, your brain, your skin, your energy, your memory, all those things, but especially, and sexual function. So when we get to testosterone, which is coming up, trust me, keep in mind for women, estrogen does have something to do with your sexual function, especially as it comes to orgasm. Weight gain in perimenopause and menopause is also part of an estrogen dysfunction, not estrogen deficiency. And that's because your body knows best. It's like starving for estrogen. So it wants to hold on to your estrogen via the fatty tissue. So it stores it. It stores fat, knowing that if you have more fat, you'll have more estrogen. It's smart, even though we don't really want it to be smart in this case. Progesterone, also important primarily in women, is very calming. It decreases anxiety. It helps physiologically, protects excess cell growth in the uterine lining. It promotes better thyroid functioning, which we'll talk about in just a moment. And it also just calms down the waters. It helps you sleep, which is so important. And when it comes to sexual function, takes you down off the ledge, which we will find out is important. Other hormones, testosterone, there you go, the heavy hitter. It's the star of the show. It's important. And believe it or not, and I know you do believe it because it's obvious, men make 10 times as much testosterone as women do. Well, duh. Testosterone for men is their primary hormone. For us, women, it matters too. It really does. Both of us require testosterone for sexual function. All men and women require it for our libido, blood flow, for sensation, all the things that come about and that are important with sexual function. It's also vital for motivation, muscle mass, body fat distribution, all the things. It is produced in the ovaries and the adrenal glands for women, and primarily in the testes for men. And just to give it a little credit, a little bit of attention, the thyroid, as well as cortisol, which comes from the adrenal glands, those hormones deserve mention as well, primarily because if the thyroid isn't functioning well, it's going to affect all of your sex hormones. And if cortisol gets out of whack, it's going to drag down progesterone, especially in women, and testosterone, especially in men, creating, again, an imbalance. And in the end, affecting your passion. And that's no good. So I put together a little picture of kind of how things progress as we age. The frazzled, I kind of figure the 30s and 40s are kind of that frazzled perimenopause phase. And I can fully relate to that. When I was in my 30s and 40s, I had 4 kids, all spaced out at 9 years, but there were 4 of them in that time frame. So it's a very frazzled time. We get our hormonal shifts, and for some women, it's earlier than later. That leads a lot to this estrogen dominance because progesterone starts to drop out of the party. And that makes you feeling very puffy, gives a lot of weight gain and irritability. Relationship issues begun really between those 30s and 40s. And a lot of times that's just because we've begun to feel the change in the hormones and we don't know what it is. It's just like, I don't know who I am. We want to get you feeling like yourself again. So the 30s and 40s, I think, is when we first start to feel this imbalance. And that kind of preps us for the 40s and 50s, which now we're noticing perhaps erratic periods, or we're also noticing some periods that are just non-existent. That changes a lot in this time. We get classic low estrogen symptoms, mood swings, brain fog, vaginal dryness, depression, anxiety, and that also lends itself to painful intercourse, which we'll get to in just a minute. But anything that brings you pain, you don't want to do, and that's normal. That is absolutely the way life should be. But in this case, it gets in the way of our sexual function and in the way of our passion. Physical and physiological changes in the 40s and 50s, add to that 50% divorce rate that happens even over the age of 45 and 50. Now, if we look back at testosterone in this age, we will also see the change in physical arousal because now our testosterone's gone and we don't have the motivation, we don't have the drive, you just don't have anything left in your tank. Without testosterone, we have nothing that fills your tank. And we just notice that a lot more in the 40s and 50s because without testosterone, we also don't have estrogen and our progesterone's like who knows where. Now we're stressed, we have too much cortisol, we just feel completely empty. So let's progress forward and talk a little bit about the libido. Remember in the beginning, I mentioned libido is more about that drive. It's seeking out maybe seeking out sex, seeking out intimacy, and what affects that feeling that you want to engage in and find your passion. That other things affect that besides just testosterone or any hormone for that matter. What else affects your libido? I will tell you the number one thing I see in my practice is stress. 100% of the time. I will see, I'm like, okay, we got all your hormones balanced out. What's going on? How come we're not like happy campers when it comes to our sexual relationships? Why? Because stress is still hanging out in there. If there's too much stress in our life, our cortisol goes out of control and we just can't focus. We don't have the bandwidth. Not only are our hormones becoming imbalanced because there's too much cortisol, but we just we can't focus. And without focus, it's hard to have any kind of sexual function. Lack of exercise, poor diet, lots of refined sugars and sugar carbohydrates, that can affect our libido because our mood is up and down with sugar. And it does take a slightly euphoric mood to move you towards libido or move you into a place where you have a better libido. Excess alcohol actually decreases libido. it increases libido. It might make you feel like you want to go have some fun, but once you're there, it's like, no, maybe not, because your dopamine's already been fed by that alcohol. What about the man in your life? There's a man in your life. Your man also can have his libido affected, perhaps by his own midlife decline. And I don't even know if this is a real term, but andropause is kind of what we call for a male menopause type situation. And that is where his testosterone's declining, and or he's feeling in a crisis mentally. Maybe his job's changing, maybe his social status in his life is changing. Maybe that your male partner is just not aware of what is, quote, good for you. Maybe there's a lack of communication. Or perhaps your libido has subsided because your partner has decided to, quote, let himself go. Everybody in mid-age has to make that conscious decision to create a healthier body, to create the optimal lifestyle. We have to make a choice for that, because guess what? It doesn't come as easily as it came when we were 25. I don't know if you've noticed that or not, but it definitely takes a choice. So all making those choices is important. What about the psychology of libido? Those of you that are patients of mine or know me or have been to other presentations know that my deep down roots come from psychology. I have a master's degree in health psychology. It's all about mind body. We can fix things physiologically, but if we don't look at them from a mind body perspective, then I don't know that we're going to really get to where we want to go. So there is a psychology of libido. Obviously, emotions, our self-esteem level, trust in your relationship or who you're with, feeling loved, feeling safe. Dopamine, serotonin, those are neurotransmitters. Dopamine is a seeking out pleasure. Obviously, that's important. So you need to have good dopamine levels. Serotonin helps us feel calm, safe, and satisfied. That's another very important neurochemical when it comes to sexual relationships and libido in general, or specifically. Again, there's our stress again. With that stress in our life, there's no way we're going to feel the freedom to seek out a relationship. So I always say the secret sauce to libido at any age is mindfulness, because that kind of wraps all that up, right? If your mind is wandering, if we're thinking about kids, work, stress, what's going on yesterday, or what happened yesterday, what's going to happen tomorrow, we can't be in the present moment. I would say libido, sexual function for sure. The relationships even require a moment of presence, satisfaction, and joyful sensual experiences have to happen at this moment in time. So we have to bring our head in the game. Here's a fun fact. And if you've been around, you might have thought through this before, but men have the ability to compartmentalize, right? They are on target, on point, but don't necessarily ask them to multitask, because it's rough, right? They're focused. So when it comes to passion, when it comes to intimacy, when it comes to a sexual relationship, they can compartmentalize right there, in that moment. Women have a tendency to multitask. And remember, both of these things can be good and bad, but I'm going to take it to this point. Multitasking for us women tends to get us places in life. We got a lot going on. But when it comes to sexual function, when it comes to intimacy, and all those things in the moment, we don't do a very good job, because we find it hard to focus on what is actually happening. So practicing mindfulness outside of a sexual relationship creates a better sexual relationship. So when you practice mindfulness, it will create a better place for your passion. Feeling sexy matters. I don't know that I think once I say that, you're like, oh yeah, I guess it does. As we move through life, we're like, I just don't have any libido, or I'm just not in the mood. I'm just too tired. And I get all those things. But if you are feeling the sexiness, that helps drive you more towards libido. If you are feeling like you are desired, if you are feeling desirable, then your libido increases and feels better. Only in the past 100 years has the current body shape we're in right now been the norm. And I spend all day talking to women and men about body image and how we're feeling about ourselves. So check in with yourself. If you're not in the right headspace with your body image, with where you're feeling with yourself physically, I think it's going to be very hard for you to increase your libido, to feel like you want to engage in intimacy. Your physical body matters. The obvious group of physical body parts, breasts, buttocks, vagina, vulva, clitoris, all those things matter a lot. Feeling good about those parts of your body matter. And guess what? Those things change tremendously in perimenopause and menopause. So are you feeling okay about those things? Do you have somebody to ask about that? If you're my patient or one of our patients here, please ask us. They change. And you know what? It's okay, but you have to know it's okay. Think about your senses. Your senses are what's going to bring you into mindfulness. So using your senses with your partner would be phenomenal. How about you talk about those body parts we just talked about with your partner and explore those things with touch? Touch is the biggest one. Touch sends out oxytocin to the brain. The release of oxytocin creates a feeling of love and bonding. And if you've ever had a baby, if you've ever had the opportunity to breastfeed that baby, or even just look at your baby close to you, oxytocin's immediately released. The love and the bonding comes with touch. As soon as oxytocin also increases testosterone and estrogen. So all of those things just with touch. Sight, sound, or touch. All of those things. Know your partner's preference. Is it music that's important? Is the touch matter? Is it sight? Do you need to set up an environment that's inviting? I was just thinking about this today, as a matter of fact. Just a side note. My house is 22 years old, and I've remodeled everything but my master bathroom and bedroom, of course. And I'm like, I think if this was prettier, it would be a lot more fun in here. I don't know if you feel that way, but it matters. Your environment matters. Make it nice and comfortable for you. And scent, there is a thing about pheromones. So if there's a smell you enjoy or colognes that you and your partner share, those things matter. And just a side note on this and doing my research, it's kind of a weird place for me to put this into the presentation, but I really think it's important. And that is, if you've had a hysterectomy, and even if your ovaries were spared, your hormones will last for a year or two, but they will go away much quicker than you think. So if you've had a hysterectomy early, and I think I put that in here because sometimes we feel like less of a person when we have body parts removed, especially something like hysterectomy, because it's like nobody knows this, nobody sees it, but you know, like things were taken out. Does it matter? It does matter. It's okay, but it matters, and it will make a difference in your hormones, and it might make a difference in how you feel about yourself. So everything matters. What can you do that's easy to fix? Obviously, we can help you fix and replace your hormones, but what can you do? And you can change your environment that we just talked about. You can talk to your partner. You can change a little bit about how you feel about your body and look into those things. But what about nutrition? Does it matter? And yeah, it matters. Because when you have energy, you have better libido. If you're tired, you're not thinking about sex. Like, it's like, no, thank you, I gotta rest. If you're tired, you might be not getting enough nutrition. Here's one thing that I see, and some of you might be using a GLP-1 agonist, which is semaglutide, tirzepatide, any of those things. And I like those products. They are working well for a lot of people. But a lot of people are not eating very well when they're on them. So they're basically just not getting any nutrition. And guess what? They're really tired. When you're not getting enough nutrition, you're tired. And if you're tired, you have no libido and you have no desire. Eating those healthier foods matter, keeping your blood sugar even throughout the day. If you're bloated and you're uncomfortable and you're eating the foods that you know don't do well for your body, whatever that might be, maybe gluten, maybe dairy, I don't know, that is not going to make things very much fun either. So believe it or not, your diet, an anti-inflammatory diet, not eating too much, watching what you're eating affects your libido every time. You also can look at supplements for libido, believe it or not. Anything that's anti-inflammatory, especially those omega-3s, will decrease pain and help increase brain function, help clarity of thought. D3 is a mood enhancer. We know that D3 helps our immune system, but it also helps our mood. Magnesium helps our adrenal glands. If our adrenal glands are working really well and our muscles are relaxed, hello, now our libido's increased. And I do think that something even as simple as, or as complicated as gut health affects our libido. So relaxing the muscles with magnesium and calming the system with magnesium and D3, all of those things help increase our mood and increase our libido. I like my sexy herbs section because that's definitely a thing. There are herbs for everything out there. And the most important thing for sexual function is blood flow. Blood flow to those organs make the biggest difference for orgasm. And if we're having pain, vaginal pain because we're at dryness, or if we're not experiencing orgasm, why again would you ever want to do that again? So we want to bring blood flow to the area. What brings blood flow? Well, arginine, which is an amino acid, increases nitric acid and blood flow. Niacinamide is another supplement that'll do that. Ginseng, ginkgo, garlic, B vitamins, all of those things stimulate and increase blood flow. Niacin increases blood flow. All of those things will help to just increase circulation, and increased circulation helps. Horny goat weed, which is such a funny thing. I know you're all laughing right now. That's a thing. That's real. That's a real herb. And it's a Chinese aphrodisiac. And it's actually been used a lot, especially at men and women. So if you look at any supplements that are meant for increasing orgasm or even increasing libido, you will see this herb in there. I promise. I dare you to turn over that label that you saw on Instagram. It's probably in there. But if you don't buy anything on their Instagram that tells you it's going to increase your libido without asking one of us, though, I don't want you to waste your money. And finally, maca is a big one. We use maca a lot in perimenopause, especially because remember, perimenopause is a roller coaster, and it is not a roller coaster anybody wants to be on, right? Your estrogen's up, it's down, you're in a good mood, you're in a bad mood. It's just all over the board, and you're doing the best you can, but hormones are kind of crazy. So maca can help increase estrogen. It also can increase testosterone. It's basically just an herb it was a fertility herb, or it is a fertility herb. And it's called that because it increases all those hormones, which is really a good thing and helpful in this situation. Of course, exercise helps with libido. And I know you're like, really? How does that help? Well, if you are in really good shape, you feel what? Good about yourself. If you feel good about yourself, if you're less stressed, if you have endorphins running through your body, will you feel like you want to have sex and be intimate? Yes, you will. If you're like, I'm just going to sit here on the couch, or I'm not going to do that, or I'm too tired, I don't think that's going to help very much. Physiologically, exercise helps with a relaxation response. And humans usually will not seek out intimacy or sexual relations when they're stressed. They just won't. Why? Because the sympathetic nervous system doesn't drive that. The parasympathetic nervous system does. So we need to engage the parasympathetic nervous system. And how we can do that naturally and easily, if we go exercise, as soon as we stop our exercise, because that takes sympathetic nervous system, as soon as we stop exercising, automatically our parasympathetic nervous system kicks in. So we exercise, we're wound up, our heart is beating, our blood pressure is increased, breathing, respiration increases. As soon as we're done, we just calm down. And when we're calm and when we're mindful, that is when the libido increases. Trust me, try it. If you are taking something that is a prescription, and maybe even if it's not a prescription, this could be sabotaging your sexual health. And this has been one thing that has come to a surprise to so many people. And I want you to take a look at what you're taking. And this is not, and I repeat, not, the answer is not to stop taking what you're taking right away. Don't do that. You need to talk to your doctor, one of us or whoever you see, before you stop taking any of your medications. But I just want to plant the seed that it could be affecting your sexual function and or your libido. Over 200 very common medications on the market affect sexual desire and function. SSRIs, so these are antidepressants. All of the Lexapro and sertraline, all the things that many people are taking and or are prescribed for menopause, for hot flashes by unknowing primary care physicians and gynecologists. Often they will prescribe an SSRI to stop hot flashes because it regulates your blood, it regulates the blood flow to the surface. So because that's what's creating that hotness. Guess what it does? It also calms you down so much you can't be excited enough to create an orgasm. So that's a no-no for only hot flashes. Very much a pet peeve of mine. Birth control pills gobbles up your testosterone for women and decreases your libido, which is quite contrary. I'm going to take birth control pills so I can have sex and not get pregnant. But now, guess what? You don't want to have sex. That is a bummer. But it can affect your sexual desire. Anti-seizure medication can do that. Blood pressure medication is the biggest one. Blood pressure medication, especially for men, decreases blood flow. And so they cannot experience erectile function the way that they used to. Statins, sleeping pills, pain meds. And the one that I really want you to understand is that over-the-counter antihistamines can affect orgasm. They affect blood flow. So they can affect both a male and female ability to come to orgasm. So those may or may not affect desire, but they can affect sexual function, just so you know. And then often, replacing hormones can eliminate, of course, can eliminate the pharmaceuticals that you're taking, and then, of course, increase sexual function. So one of the things we often do is try to take away some of those medications by replacing them with either healthier lifestyles or different supplements, and then now you're able to experience libido and sexual function again. So finally, I put this together because it just drives home the fact that personalizing your formula for passion, there are many things that affect our hormones, that can affect our sexual function or our libido. There's hormones. It is our libido, our relationships. It's, our diet, our nutrition, our sexual confidence, your self-support. Do you just need more time for you so you feel fulfilled? Are you getting too much exercise? Not enough exercise? Does your relationship need a visit? Are you just deficient in estrogen and have vaginal dryness and nothing feels good anymore? Or are you in your 30s or even early 40s and you have estrogen dominance, which makes you feel really puffy and no fun? So there's so many little reasons that can be affecting both your desire and or your sexual function, and really putting the kibosh on all your ability to experience passion. It's not just the hormones, even though we love to say that it is. There's a lot of things out there. I put these resources on this slide because they're ones that I use to prepare. They're ones that I refer patients to. The Sex Drive Solution is a really good one. Goop Sexual Wellness online has some good, really good articles and information. And then if you're one that's like, oh, maybe the relationship needs a visit, these next couple resources are really good. But really, if you are somebody that's already in our practice or hasn't been to our practice before, contact one of us. We're more than happy to help you. And you know, it's a very complicated thing, finding what's missing in your life that's creating the most passion for you, that could create the most passion for you. But I know you can figure it out. Let me know. Do you have any questions? Go ahead and put it in the chat, and we'll see if we can get anything more specific down for you. And, you know, if not, hopefully you got just a couple of little things from today that you can take home, practice, do your best with, and have fun. Your 50s and beyond. And also, thank you for sharing your lunch with me. If you haven't had it yet, go enjoy that. I'm going to hang out here for a few minutes and see if there are any other questions. And if you have a question, you can just click on the little chat square and type it in. Thank you, Lindsay and Francis. Thanks for hanging out. And Dawn. Also, in the future, if you have anybody that has any questions, please feel free to send them our way, because we're more than happy to answer questions. And this is always a topic that nobody ever really wants to talk about. So we are always open for those conversations. Very good. Well, if nobody has any other questions, thanks again for being here. And if you think of something later on, just let us know. You can even send me a message here at my office at Desert Wellness Center. We'll hope to see y'all another time. Thanks. I didn't end. I was going to end, but then I see that I have a question. One question that said, in her 60s, feeling some dryness isn't an issue, but no feeling. When you don't have dryness, but you don't have sensation, that's typically going to be blood flow. Could be blood flow. So we would talk a little bit more about what we can do to increase blood flow, and or it could be the type of stimulation. So either talking with your partner and exploring those different kinds of stimulation, and or exploring those options is probably going to be the best thing for you. There are also creams that can bring more sensation to the area. But most of those creams are going to be compounded and prescribed. So for your question, if you have seen one of us here, I would ask for more specifics from one of your docs. And if you are not seeing one of us here, then give us a call and we can at least do a quick 15-minute with you to help you out on that. But a lot of times it's a blood flow issue, and we just need to bring a little more blood flow to the issue to bring a little bit more stimulation. But every now and then too, and more sensation. And the other thing too is make sure that you are also paying attention to, are you on or are you taking any of those medications that I listed earlier? Remember, there's well over 200 that can affect blood flow. So, and one thing I didn't mention was diabetes or type 2 diabetes. Any of those things affect blood flow. So could be SSRI, could be, any of those medications. Thanks for your question, Kathy. Okay, everyone, again, thanks for coming, and I will happily take questions later if you send them into the office. See you again.